Have you ever felt like you were speaking a different language from your child? Or perhaps you found yourself in a situation where communication just seems to break down, leaving you frustrated and confused. If so, you're definitely not alone. I can definitely say I've been there. Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating topic that blends ancient history with modern parenting challenges and problem solving. So, thank you for joining us at the Parenting 411 podcast. I am your host, Carol Milletta, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Joel Freeman, an internationally sought after speaker and the mastermind behind the Mysterious Rosetta Stone traveling exhibit. Dr. Freeman has dedicated his life to empowering individuals from all walks of life to enhance their communication skills and to maximize productivity. With a rich background that spans player development for NBA athletes, multicultural education, and even serving as a United States Secret Service chaplain, Dr. Freeman brings a unique perspective to the table. His project transforms the ancient Rosetta Stone into a powerful metaphor for problem solving, something we can all benefit from in our parenting journeys and in our life overall. So join us as we explore how this ancient artifact unlocks new ways of thinking about communication in our families, helping us bridge gaps and foster deeper connections with our children. So get ready for an enlightening conversation filled with insights that can help you navigate the complexities of parenting today. Welcome, Dr. Joel.
Welcome, Carol. Good to see you again.
Yes. I've been looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yes. So why don't you share with us what inspired you to create the Mysterious Rosetta Stone traveling exhibit, and how does it connect to all that you've done, your diverse background?
First of all, I had quite an interest in Black history. I started as chaplain for the Bullets, the Wizards, in 78-79 season. And right around 1980, I began to realize that these guys, their position in life attracts a lot of insincere people. They're looking at me like this white guy from Canada. I'm supposed to spill my guts to that guy. Are you kidding me? And so then they started asking questions, and I had not a clue. So it forced me to start studying. I bumped into Ivan Van Sertima, who was an Afrocentric scholar, and just over 30 volumes of literature. And then, ended up developing this right here, the Black History 365 project with Dr. Walter Milton. He's the founder. I'm the co-founder. And of course, we included something in there about the Rosetta Stone in the project. A curriculum that's now in over 400 school districts around the country, K through 12. I guess my first introduction to it was I began to do some research just about, as a chaplain, about the reliability of the Bible, the historical, the archaeological, the geological, topographical, historical, all the different layers. When I was looking at the archaeological evidence, I kept bumping into the Rosetta Stone. It fascinated me because the Rosetta Stone kind of changed the rules. Because prior to the Rosetta Stone unearthing on the west bank of the Nile in 1799, a lot of wealthy European young men, they would go over to different parts of that part of the world, and they'd bring pickaxes, shovels, sticks of dynamite, and they just blow stuff up, and come back and have a mummy unwrapping party on a Friday evening with everyone with their pinkies out drinking tea or wine or whatever, and just kind of in awe about what was happening. But they would destroy a lot of valuable information that was laying in the ground. So once the code to hieroglyphics was cracked, and we can go into more detail about that if you want, but once the code was cracked, then the whole soft science of archaeology began to develop. And then my perspective, biblical archaeology emerged. And then back in about 20 years ago, there was a gentleman in an auction who's selling a replica of the face of the Rosetta Stone. It's a stone that's about 45 inches tall, 30 inches wide, 11 inches thick, weighs about 1,700 pounds. The face, the British Museum has the original Rosetta Stone. They made only about a dozen of these in the 1970s. And I was able to acquire one of those one-to-one first-generation replicas of the face of the Rosetta Stone. And when it arrived, oh my goodness, I thought, wow, what if I found a stone sculptor who could recreate the sides and the rear. Because I've been to London, England, all around that area many, many times. A friend of mine had a flat about a 5-minute walk from the British Museum on Lamb's Conduit Court. And every time I'd visit him, hang out with him, I'd run over to the British Museum. And back then, you could hug it, you could kiss it, you could lick it, you could hold it, you could rub it, you could do anything because it was accessible. So I had a lot of pictures I took of the sides, the rear, the up, all around. So when the stone sculptor in Michigan, when he set up his studio to create this, we had poster size images of the Rosetta Stone, the real Rosetta Stone that he was working from. And after 5 permutations, he came up with an incredible replica. And then we launched the project in 2009 at the Library of Congress. And it's funny, I was wheeling it down to the room where we were doing the symposium. I had people stopping me and saying, "Is that the real Rosetta Stone?" I said, "Well, first of all, that one weighs 1,700 pounds, and this weighs 100 pounds. But also, if you ever see any bobbies running after me with whistles and nightsticks, then you know I've got the real one."
Right.
But no, it's a replica.
Mm-hmm. And so talk a bit about how you decided to kind of draw that line with, understanding and problem solving. And then I'm wondering next how that can be, the framework can be useful for families, creating understanding and moving past misunderstandings and building connections.
Beautiful. It's a kind of story. I mean, we have Rosetta Stone, language software company. The European Space Agency had a Rosetta project where they were studying comets. We have the Rosetta Genome Project. It has become a story, kind of like a Kleenex. This is a Kleenex. If hold up a hanky, it's a Kleenex. Well, this is the Rosetta Stone of XYZ. It has become a moniker, a title, if you will, and or a description of something. I guess what caused me to really start thinking about this in a whole different level is about 11 years ago, the History Channel put on a special called 101 Objects That Changed the World. And we have the wheel, we have airplanes, automobiles, all kinds of different, and they brought in some subject matter experts, SMEs, to research this. They spent a whole year. And then when the show came out, the number 1 was the Bible, number 2, coinage, money, and number 3, the Rosetta Stone. Now that just smacked me around. I thought, did that beat out the wheel? Did that beat out the car, the computer, the rocket ship, airplane? How did that happen? How did they come up with that? And I figured, I'm interested in Rosetta Stone, but I must be missing something here that is far bigger than I can even imagine. So that launched me into looking at maybe taking this ancient artifact, using the story, because even in ancient African history, we have the oral tradition passing from generation to generation, the griot, that is telling the story. And then the younger generation is learning, and that happens in family systems, where tell me about grandpa or great grandpa, and then kids learn about their family system and some of the ups and the downs and all arounds that their family has been through oral tradition. And so I thought, it's important in wrapping what I'm going to do, wrapping it around the story, this epic drama starting in 196 BC, how the Rosetta Stone came about, why was it set up, why was the language of Greek on it, hieroglyphics and a demotic script, the 3 inscriptions, why was all that there? Who were they connecting with their languages? Because language helps us to understand the culture. It's like someone who's illiterate can't drive, really, because they don't know what they are. They can't go to a restaurant and open a menu and figure out what they want to get. So once a person learns how to read, a child learns how to read, it just opens up the world to them on a whole nother level. And then looking at ancient history and ancient peoples, once we understand a Sumerian text or some other type of text, it just unlocks the secrets of that particular civilization. That's what happened with understanding ancient Egyptian culture. That was kind of my genesis. I kind of bumped into it, and then I began to think, what if we take this ancient artifact in its epic drama, its story surrounding it,
Mm-hmm.
turn it, transform it into a modern metaphor for problem solving and critical thinking. The Industrial Revolution, changed the skyline of cities around the world. That was a genuine revolution that changed the way we think, the way we interact, the way we travel, the way we live, everything. And steam was a big part of that, harnessing the power of steam to create this industrial revolution. Now we have three revolutions. This whole generation, you and I grew up in an era where we had to read a book, where we had to think things through. It took 15 years to become an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays we have, first of all, the AI, Chat GPT. Secondly, we have what is known as spatial computing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have what's known as quantum computing. Now, any
Mm-hmm.
one of those three is a giant revolution all by itself. When all three converge together, I just see it as, there's things that are very hopeful about it. There's things to be very concerned about. I am not
Definitely.
an anti-technology view, but I don't want this generation, when we think of parents watching this, to lose the value of the God-given human brain. Because kids nowadays, you talk to any kids, and if they're honest, they'll let you know, yeah, I wrote a paper with ChatGPT, I use that. And I'm thinking that can raise a generation of kids that have what we call the imposter syndrome. Yeah, I wrote that song. Yeah, I wrote that book. Yeah, I wrote that article. No, no, no. It was technology that created that for you. And this whole poser mentality. And I think that can gnaw away at the conscience, at the
Mm-hmm.
integrity of young kids. And so to create something that has a storyline with a character called the Rosetta clone, and this character is, I'll show you, this is the booklet about the project, but we have a character that engages with kids of all ages called the Rosetta clone. And
Okay.
it's kind of a character, looks like the Rosetta Stone, but he's kind of a smarmy, well-loved, beloved creature, an international rock star, a celebrity impersonator. He sings songs like A Clone Again, naturally, and Tears of a Clone, and One is the Cloneliest Number You Ever Heard. And then he has a sidekick. Her name is Rosie. He's like the kite, and she's like the string holder to keep him balanced because he's got ADD and he's all over the place. He's very intelligent, but she's the one that keeps him grounded with facts and with making sure this connects. Creating a 5,000 square foot traveling exhibit with 4 zones, it to me was an important part of this project.
Mm-hmm.
Is number one, to have a zone that talks about the history, then another zone that talks about code cracking. We have the Enigma that the Nazi Germans used, and kids love code cracking.
Okay.
We have the Cyrillic code. We have the Native American, the indigenous people using smoke signals. Hey, there's buffalo coming, but we don't want to know another tribal system to know about it. We want to get the buffalo first. We have the Navajo Code Talkers, the movie that came out about that. So we have business and also countries. They protect proprietary secrets using codes. We have all that with computer science and everything else. Second is about the codes. The third zone in a 5,000 square foot traveling exhibit that will visit museums and science centers for 7 years for 5 months at each venue. The third zone is about language and culture, how language and culture connect, but sometimes collide. And we're going to talk about how the understandings of language helps to unlock secrets, as we discussed briefly. Then the fourth zone is where we take the word Rosetta, and I've developed a 7-step, 7 letters on Rosetta, 7 steps to solve pretty much any problem in about 8 to 10 different categories of problems. And this is where it connects with parenting, is
Mm-hmm.
that parents are modeling to their children how to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
So when a parent flies off the handle, my PhD is in counseling, and when someone says, well, I've got problems, emotional problems and everything, I ask them, well, where did you first see how to handle this? And it was usually from mom or dad or uncle or a grandparent or something like that. And so I think it's important for parents to learn about problem solving because it is the stuff of life. I mean, quote is that we're always coming toward a problem, in a problem, or walking away from a problem. It's just the way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have different degrees of problems. For instance, and I'm developing a whole inventory to help people understand that the 3 categories of problems, we have campfire problems, bonfire problems, and wildfire problems. And
Hmm.
in a home, homeschooling, whatever it might be, the situation might be, if it's a campfire problem, first of all, campfires, we like in my backyard here, if I wanted to have a campfire, I would create a space for a campfire, make sure there's no low hanging branches or anything like that that could catch on fire. I'd put
Hmm.
rocks around it and prepare a place for a campfire. And it's like owning a home. It's anytime you probably sat around a campfire where you move. Here's the campfire, and you're in
Hmm.
this spot over here, and the smoke
Hmm.
comes. Oh, I'm moving over here, and then the smoke finds you there, and you move over here. The smoke finds you here. Owning a home is like that. It's there's
Hmm.
always something. The roof needs to be fixed, new a washer and dryer, a new stove. Something is always going on in a home. So those are what we call campfire problems. We prepare for the problems and then we deal with them as they come up. And how parents model that to their children, rather than flying off the handle on a campfire problem, let's reserve that for a wildfire problem. But a bonfire is also prepared for, and that might be a business, a family-owned business, where they have prepared a place. There might be logs and big rocks around it, and you definitely don't want it anywhere near any low-hanging branches or anything like that, because when that fire gets going, there's sparks going everywhere. It's the edge of danger. Something crazy could happen here, but it's like a new business that a family owns, let's say an ice cream company or a business or something like that. Things begin to happen. There's exciting things, there's terrible things, but problems have to be solved. And the thing about business for a family, you have a business because you're solving a problem, whether it's dealing with people's taxes, accounting. If someone
Hmm.
is in entertainment, it's giving people a release, a film, giving them release for 90 minutes from their everyday issues and going into another dramatic situation. If it's creating ice cream business, as I mentioned, it's just giving people the opportunity to just say, "Hey, I want ice cream cone," and here we are in this city, in this community, offering
Hmm.
ice cream cones to people. And then that's a bonfire problem. And then we have a wildfire problem. That's when you better bring your accountant, legal, reputation. There's all kinds of situations that need to be brought in. Every head is on swivel, marshal all the forces. And that's why when you can have a chance to be level-headed and then freak out later. But it's all these types of aspects are very important in terms of looking at just the R of recognizing the problem, the R and the 7 steps for problem solving. So I'll come up for air because I can get excited, and you might have something to say. Well, Joel, you said this. Give me some more information on that.
Well, I like that. I definitely like that approach to thinking about the problems, the three levels that you have there. I like that a lot, and I can certainly see how, with parents understanding the 7 steps and being able to model that for their children would be so beneficial and help them to really build confidence and build resilience. And I too think problem solving is important. That's very much a part of my Parent and Purpose coaching program. I created an idea model. It's a 4-step model for problem solving and for teaching your child how to do it early on so that parents can kind of move through what I feel are the 3 major seasons of parenthood. And that's where they're the hands-on manager. And then as their children are get mature and have more training and how to take care of themselves and take care of their things and matters that are close to them, then you can step back and be a coach. You're still there. You're on the sidelines cheering. You're also training. You're still providing training. And then where you move after that is more of a consultant, which is honestly where I am with my
Beautiful.
with my young adults. And I think that problem solving, the ability to be resourceful and resolve problems is really at the heart of it. I mean, I think that's how you can move from one phase to the other. And I think that's very healthy in the relationship between parents and children. I think that, given the way you've described the model, it has a lot of applications for the kind of work that you do in terms of empowering people. And so I kind of think about the fact that you were a mentor to athletes. And so I was wondering, how can You apply the principles of the Rosetta Stone project to nurturing and developing talent. And that even applies for parents in terms of helping children to do that.
Yes, I think that's a very important aspect of this project. Basically, what we're going to be doing is, just as a sidebar, that we're going to create a K through 2, 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, and then college, university, and beyond, about 6 to 7 different layers of understanding about problem solving after the experience of going through the 5,000 square foot traveling exhibit. And so part of that is what I've done is I've trademarked the word solutionist because it's a word that is rarely known and rarely understood. And when people hear it, it has a certain ring to it. And it's kind of interesting. So someone becoming a certified executive coach or certified life coach, we're going to have a certification for people to become a solutionist in this project and to train up people in these disciplines and ideas, because people can have goals, but they always fall to their process. If the process isn't there, I don't care how lofty the goals are, it's going to crash and burn on some level and create a lot of chaos. With athletics, drama, observing this, I think it's important for parents to, first of all, there's a book called The Three Boxes of Life, and it's where the gentleman has written this. Can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but first box, which is kind of germane to what you're talking about a little bit. The first box is that a child is learning from very early age. They're putting things in their mouths and they're kind of touching. This is hot. This is cold. They're learning all the way up through. And then once they get their training done, whatever that means in each specific situation, then they start earning, they start working. And so it's the working box, making money box. And then finally, when they retire, it's the fun box, it's the retirement box. And so his thesis is that it's important to, there are some people that think, well, I can only be in one box at one time. I'm learning, but I'm not earning. I'm not having fun. His thesis is to be in all three boxes at one time, like a Michael Jordan, is going up for a dunk, but he has studied film. He knows his opponent goes left, he's going to go right, or he's going to double pump fake or something like that. But he knows that's how he's going to deal with this particular person who's guarding the basket. So he's learning. He's earning, making more money in every minute than people make in a year sometimes. And then he's having so much fun. He'd say, "They pay me to do this? You're kidding me. I would do this for free. I'm having so much fun." So that's the one book I would encourage parents to read so they can begin to understand a little bit about their child. And another thing is What Colors Your Parachute is another book. I think it's important for parents to understand, so that you have the different clusters of the people clusters and the mechanical technical clusters. And that way, it's like going into Howard Johnson's. They got 28 flavors of ice cream. It can be confusing. It's like a teacher says, "Hey, kids, you can write on anything you want." That creates more stress than giving them 4 things to choose from. These 4 topics you're limited to. They're comforted by having some kind of structure involved. And so I think if parents can help to kind of nudge, and not being a helicopter parent or, and anything weird about that, but it's just helping to nudge them and say, and also the personality, I use the DISC, where you have 3% of people are dominant, blunt, about 11% of people are open. I'd say, they are influencers. They enter a room mouth first, tell the same joke 5 different times, and can be 10 miles wide and only 3 inches deep. And you have the third, 69% are steady people. These are the people that make the world go round. They will come to an event en masse and leave project en masse. They kind of work together as a group of people and live together as a group of people. And then you have the 17% are more analytical, asking the same question about 8 different ways, trying to figure things out. And each one has their own fears, things that motivate them. And so I think it's important for parents to first learn about themselves and then understand how, my wife and I had 4 children, 2 grandchildren, but we brought our children through understanding about their personality. And it helped us understand how to discipline them, because you send one child to their room and they're going, "Great, I'll put my headphones on, crank it up to 8, and this is heaven." I love this. Another child, you send them to the room, they go, no, I want to get out of there. So one
Mm-hmm.
type of discipline is effective for one child, but not effective for the other. So, but personality helps us to understand that. And that's where, in terms of the Rosetta process, it's recognizing the problem, and it's recognizing the challenges that we have in raising children about our own self, the things that kind of tick us off about our kids, maybe remind us about our own childhood, or remind us about someone we had problems with in the past. And
Yes.
if we can unpack that kind of stuff, then I think we can do better parenting with our
Mm-hmm.
children. Then the color your parachute helps us to guide our children into the places that they might flourish the best.
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk said, I think he started a new school. I just was watching a video the other day, and he
Mm-hmm.
said the school, it's kind of different, unique. I think there's like 18 kids in it right now. But
Mm-hmm.
he said that they're focusing on what interests the children. And he said, for instance, you don't focus on the tools, you focus on the problem. So if you're teaching about mechanical things, rather than saying, here's a wrench, and we're going to study about the history of the wrench, and
Mm-hmm.
here's a Phillips screwdriver, and here's a hammer, here's all these different implements, we're going to study about the tools. He says, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, you get into the problem, and then you begin to realize the application of the tools, the resources that can be used to fix the problem. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's his whole approach, which I think is pretty interesting.
Do you want to connect your brand with families worldwide? Pypix by the Parenting 411 is your ticket to success. With over 20,000 followers and a podcast reaching more than 25 countries, we're talking family relationships, mental health, and raising awesome kids. Our past guests include doctors, psychologists, other medical professionals, counselors, New York Times bestsellers, award-winning actors, and others. Pypix amplifies your reach and boosts visibility to engage parents seeking the best for their families. Ready to join the big leagues? Visit Pypix by P411.com and let's take your brand to new heights. Pypix by P411.com. Amplify, boost, and drive your success in the parenting world.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking about, well, so many things that you said, I could absolutely relate to the notion that you have to engage with children differently based on their temperaments.
Yeah,
And while you may have the same rules or the same boundaries in terms of what's allowed in your family and what's not, the way you communicate them and the way you preserve them within the family can be very different depending on which child. Like I have twins and they have very different personalities, present very differently. And you are so right. The way that I even communicated certain limits or boundaries when I was younger, it was the same benefit. I mean, excuse me, the same boundary, but just the way I spoke it, the way I talked to them about it. And we each have different inside jokes, things that one thought was funny, the other's like, "Oh, what are you doing?"
yeah,
Whatever. I can't
don't
relate
get
to that at all. I can't relate to that at all. I like that a lot too. And then that can also relating to people speaking their language and really understanding them can also reduce a lot of conflict. And it just kind of brought to mind your book, I believe it is, or your talk that you do, your keynote about dealing with people that drive you crazy, I believe it is.
Yep,
And
yep,
and probably at the heart of that is just this fundamental misunderstanding of the other person, or not seeking to understand the other person, not having an interest, or possibly not realizing you don't understand the other the other person.
yes.
But in the end, the result is the same. You're still butting heads and you're still not moving forward. And I certainly believe that that's something that happens in families as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. The 7 steps, if I can you get, first of all, we have you got to recognize the problem
Sure.
and what kind of problem it is. Is it a moral, ethical problem? Is it a technical problem, mechanical problem, interpersonal problem? Is it a financial problem? And the different, I've identified about 8 to 10 different categories of problems with a transcendent approach to them. And then obtaining information is just basically putting the antennas up and just doing a 360 on it. And checking things out. I have a song that we put together that shows the process. It's a hip hop song, about 4 minutes long, that takes people through the process. And then specify the goals, in terms of inventing something or helping another person walk through a problem. It's what are my goals? Because sometimes when people have a problem, it's like learning to be a lifeguard. If you approach them straight on, then they're going to take you down with them. In rescuing someone who is drowning in a problem, you have to kind of stiff arm them and come around from behind so that you can then bring them to safety. And then there's also emotional intelligence in the way we approach things. Like with my wife and I, my wife sometimes, she has an issue or problem or something. She doesn't want me to fix it. She wants a hug. She wants
you to listen.
Yeah, just be there for her. And then maybe 24 or 48 hours later, I say, Shirley, I've been thinking about this. Is this a good time to talk about this? Have you thought about this option or that option? But at first, it's just a whole emotional intelligence approach to problems. So we're not a hammer and looking at everybody as a nail, to pound that and deal with that and kind of wipe the dust off our hands and say, I solved another problem today. So specifying goals. Does someone want to become famous when they fix this problem? Do they want to become wealthy when they fix the problem? Now, those are to me shallow reasons. But when a person understands their why, they can deal with any who, any what, any when, anywhere, anyhow that comes at them once they understand why. So the specifying goals is internal and external, understanding of what we're doing here. Why are we doing this? Why should I waste my time on this? And sometimes even my own personal life, when people come to me with an invention or an entrepreneurial idea, I have a crap detector. I've written a book about it, or I've written an article that's online, and I send them. We talk for 90 to 120 seconds. I'm as nice as possible with that person. It's great talking with you. I'll tell you what, go to this website, take a look at the website, then call me back, and then we can drill down, or read this book on entrepreneurship. I wrote a book called If Nobody Loves You, Create the Demand. Read the book first. I don't care if I give it to you or you buy it and read it or whatever. But then what happens is 95% of the people don't ever come back to me. So I saved myself some time. I specified some goals within me about how I'm going to help that person solve a problem. It revealed to me that I would have wasted my time with that person. They weren't really listening. They really didn't want to do some work involved. I've taken notice of where my counsel is in demand, written a book, a booklet, or an article online, send them to it, and that has helped me help them specify their goals and help me whether I need to interact with them more deeply. And then evaluate options, because and especially when helping a child solve problems, it's like I'll come up with an option if you come up with the first one. I'll match every option that you come up with. So it's helping to build the muscles. The Cleveland Clinic says that our physical muscles can atrophy without resistance for 2 to 3 weeks. That's why NASA space, they have all these resistance exercises because their muscles will atrophy. The same holds true with the brain. That if I don't have resistance and problems that need to be solved, and if my parents are solving those problems, a child will never develop those mental muscles and those pathways, those synapses that connect to deal with those problems. And so it's kind of like with a child, here's 2 sets of overalls you can wear. Which one do you want to wear? And now you're now living with the consequences of your choice throughout the rest of the day. And it's
you are teaching parenting today.
Yes. And then the first T is to test solutions. And that's a very important part of it. And it's helping our children to test the solutions that we've developed, maybe 5 options. And we figured out the best of the worst of options. And because many times there's no real good options, but we got to pick out which is the best of the worst. So we test the solutions and try to figure out which solution will work with this particular problem. And how does this impact? It's like, when we're in a jar, can't read the label. Sometimes we do stuff in a jar, like you created a whole coaching program and everything else. And then you test results and you test solutions. You put it out there and people are reading the label for you and saying, Carol, what you're doing is incredible. You should do a podcast on this, or you should write a book about this. And it becomes something where then now the solutions, you're getting real world results from people. And the same with children. I don't believe in giving a prize to everybody. I think that's not the real world. Then it's important to take action, to move in a particular direction, even if it's wrong. It's like a car that has doesn't have power steering. You remember
Mhm.
those days, and if the car is sitting by itself, or some kind of tractor or something like that, and you try to
Mhm.
turn the wheel, it's hard while it's stationary, but you get it moving, and it's moving in the wrong direction. Now you can bring it around to the right direction. And
Mhm.
so taking action, I think, is a very important aspect. Of some personalities types, they want to be permanent students. They don't want to put something into play. And I just say, come on, just get moving in a particular direction, and then always assessing results. One of the things I did for my children is is at 15, or early on, or starting about 7, to help them understand about the diversity of the world and dealing with problems, cultural aspects, and different things like that. Because I find that values are not so much taught, they're caught. And
Mhm.
so right around 7, I began to tell each one of my children, you can go anywhere in the world with dad when you turn 15. Now, why did I choose 15? Because just it's a year before they get their license, and in all for all intents and purposes, they're pretty much gone then. And now working at McDonald's or Burger King or something like that, and they're kind of figuring things out for themselves. And then also at 15, it's where we can reestablish eye contact and say, in our culture, different cultures handle individuating, flapping the wings, getting out of here. You have to get out of here somehow, and some do it rougher than others. But let's reestablish eye contact in another culture where neither of us understand the language. We neither of us totally understand the culture. No matter how much we have gone to seminars or watched videos about the culture we're in, you have to be immersed in it and experience it. And so let's establish some kind of an agreement here. At
Mhm.
15, over these next 2, 3, 4 years, things can get kind of bloody, kind of crazy, kind of you're going to be flapping your wings. You got to do it. You got to
That's right.
individuate and move forward. But let's do this in a way when as I release my grip,
Mhm.
and release you to the world. Let's do this in a way where we don't harm each other, at
Mhm.
least, and at best, we become the best of friends in the process, and a
Mhm.
collegiality begins to develop. And so what happened is that son number one, he's now 45. He's worked in over 100 video games as a tester, as a
Mhm.
designer, and he's just done some incredible things in that world. But he chose Israel out of all the,
Okay.
and it wasn't something where you just flip take a globe and then shut your eyes and then put your hand and, oh, I'm going to go to China.
Right.
No, we went to the library, we got books, we got videos, we studied, and it became something where they then could begin to narrow things down, where they had this broad interest, and they narrow it down to, I want to go here. I can't
Right.
go over here, but we're going to go here. And
Right.
he chose Israel, and we
Mhm.
did a layover in London
Mhm.
for about 5 days. And then the second child, he and I went to Egypt, Italy, Monaco, France, all around there for 20 days. Third child, he and I went first just a layover in Hawaii, and then went all around Australia for 20
Okay.
days. That was when 9/11 happened. We were stuck for 5 extra days on that one. I couldn't
Wow.
get out. And then daughter, I felt it was important for her to do this with mom initially. At 15, she went with mom to Barbados. They hung out there for like 18, 20 days. And then when she turned 22, she and I went to Africa for
Mm.
18 days, and I did no business on any of this stuff, no speaking, because my speaking took me to over 55 countries, and I could have easily rustled up some gigs and spoke somewhere. But I said, no, I want to be totally focused on you.
Focused.
That's
Mhm.
all part of the Rosetta process, I think, is to
Mhm.
help kids, develop a collegiality and work through this problem solving process. First of all, how are we going to get there? I had them earn $300 for the trip, so that there's some sweat equity involved. What are they going to do? Am I going to babysit? Am I going to do windows, mow lawns? So that was a problem that had to be solved. They had to come up with $300. Then the whole idea of go walking through the process of a passport. What does that mean to have a passport?
Mhm.
And getting the shots if we're going to a particular part of the world that gets dengue fever and all these different things, and understanding how we connect with the rest of the world. And so I found that to be, and we still talk about it. It's changed the way we watch the news. It's
Mhm.
changed. It's just brought, and the kids now have traveled all over the world. I've
Mhm.
taken them to all kinds of different places as a result. And so that's a part of the process of parents working with kids to think about maybe doing that. And if the kids are already grown up, maybe with grandkids or as an uncle or an aunt or something like that.
Yeah, I love it. And those are the kinds of things that we did with our sons as well. And even when they were younger too, we did mother-son, father-son trips, even within the states, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
diversity within our country too, as well as trips outside. And I think that that is absolutely essential, especially to plant those values in the children, the next generation, because that's what is going to be required. Understanding when in 2020, when the pandemic and all of the racial tensions bubbled up, I was often asked to speak on different media outlets, and I really truly believed that we keep circling back, having this reckoning with it because of fear, ignorance, and a lack of curiosity in this country. And we can cultivate that in our children. I mean, we can work to neutralize that or eliminate that in our children, because the fear is fear of being wrong, fear of finding out that what our children have been taught in school is not entirely true, and fear of what that means if those things aren't true, what it means for us individually, and then the ignorance. Of course, it can be willful ignorance, like I don't want to know the truth, or as I said, being fed the misinformation, and then just not caring, not being interested in how other people think, how other people live right here in this country, certainly, but also how people, in other countries who have different cultures, speak different languages. And, you talked about how much understanding the language of a culture really gives you insight. That there's just this lack of curiosity that honestly still persists. And I think when you can kind of address those things, then you don't have to feel threatened. Like when you're in a professional setting and you have different people bringing their perspectives in to solve a particular problem, and it's different from what you think, you already know that these different perspectives exist if you introduce it when you're younger, and recognize that, and of course also instilling pride in your children about your own culture, so that they won't be threatened. Like they're like, well, I know I love what my ancestors are all about and the traditions we practice. So of course this person here who has a different culture, they love their culture too. And that takes nothing away from me. Like we could, if anything, if we learned more about each other, we'd both grow. And that's what I think needs to start happening with our children. I mean, it's never too late. I mean, I think that we all could work on those biases and strongholds that we have. But starting with children in the beginning, it just makes it so much easier to grow up and be adults who think in a more open way.
Yeah, Mark Twain wrote a book called Innocents Abroad. It was published in 1869. I have a first edition copy of that. When you open it up, there's one paragraph that really sponsored this whole idea of taking our children, different parts of the world. He said, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and
Mm-hmm.
many people need it sorely in those accounts. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot expand your mind by vegetating in one corner of the earth all one's lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I don't know if you ever read a book and you almost feel like something reaches out and grabs you by the scruff of the neck.
Uh-huh.
That's what really grabbed me and sponsored the whole idea of trips with dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, tell us how we can follow you and just keep up with all of the work you're doing with Rosetta Stone, and also the 360. Is it Black 360? Is that how it is?
Black History 365. Yeah.
Yes, Black History 365 project. How can we follow you?
Well, The Rosetta Stone project, the town well for that is rosettacrazy.com. So it's just taking the word Rosetta, Rossetta, crazy.com. And then that will give all the information, all kinds of links. We have an advisory board with folks like Smokey Robinson, Kathy Hughes, and others on the advisory board. My personal website is 4 words, Joel, Joel, joelspeaksrealgood.com.
Okay.
joelspeaksrealgood.com. And that will give you kind of a panoramic view of the Black History 365 project, the Rosetta Stone, the Rosetta Universe project, and just some of the other, now writing music. I've been writing music for many years. I've just come out with my first album. It's, I guess I should say it's coming out very soon, called Empty the Library Within, and encouraging people to, because when I've been at funerals, I just think of the person in the casket. There's a library of information, experiences that it's gone. It's gone.
You're right.
And so I'm encouraging people, especially in our generation, just to empty that library, make videos, write books, get it out of you. Parents, get in front of a video camera and have your kids ask you questions about your childhood. Let's get that library out. So it's the whole idea of empty the library within.
I like that a lot. Well, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about the Rosetta Stone project. And to our listeners, I will absolutely be bringing Dr. Joel back, because we're going to just talk. We're going to focus on the Black History 365 project. I purchased one of the books, and it's a heavy book, as you probably saw when he, if you are watching, you saw when he showed it to us. And I have a godson who has 3 young children, and I thought that this was an important book to have on their shelf throughout their children's lives, so that they could learn as much as they could about Black history, learn about their culture, and so that they can be one of those adults who are not fearful, who are not ignorant, and who have tons of curiosity and creativity and are open to embracing other cultures and just bringing together the best of all of them to solve the world's problems. And I definitely encourage you all to check out that book and be on the lookout for this episode, because we're going to talk about this a lot more about how he got started with it and what's happening with it, because it really is a powerful book. As usual, I thank you all for tuning in. I love to have you with me. Just continue to follow us at the Parenting 411 on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to grab your copy, your free copy, as a matter of fact, of Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey at Mother's Work, the book. You just pay for shipping and handling. And of course, you're going to get some other goodies as well about parent-child communication. You'll also be exposed to my problem-solving model within that webinar. Absolutely visit mothersworkthebook.com and grab your free copy. Thank you for tuning in, and I can't wait to talk to you all again soon. Bye.
We bring you this episode for the purpose of information and entertainment only. It is not the intent or purpose of the Parenting 411 podcast or Carol Maletta to provide an exhaustive reference or guide on all aspects of parenting, childcare, and family life. You are strongly encouraged to read all available information, consult medical or other appropriate professionals, and pursue all reasonable means to learn as much as possible about parenting to complement what you gain here, and then tailor the information to meet your individual needs. Yes, parenting is a serious matter, though it is not an exact science. The context and insights offered in this and every episode represent an account of knowledge and personal experiences of the host and any featured guests for the viewers' and listeners' information and consideration. The host and guests do not guarantee to our viewers or listeners any specific parenting outcomes from this episode or taking actions described here.